This particular session is entitled Threads, Discovering Our Own Sense of Meaning. No matter what your role is, whether you're frontline staff or you're in administration or you serve maybe in environmental services or dietary services, we all experience these things within our vocation of these times where we stop and we think, what's the point? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Kind of a sense of exasperation. And when we do that, one of the things that's happening within us is this sense of meaning begins to slip. This occupation that we got into, this particular vocation, it begins to lose its sense of sacredness. And we begin to slip in areas of meaning and purpose, and we begin to forget those things. And as we begin to lose meaning, one of the things that very quickly winds up happening is increased areas of compassion fatigue and burnout. And so in this particular session, we want to really look at this particular question of where do I find meaning? Each and every one of us experiences meaning in different ways. For some people, it might be a particular faith that they're a part of. For someone else, it might be maybe particular values you were raised with, the culture that you were raised in, or maybe particular hobbies or interests that you have. When we talk about those things which are sacred, for each one of us, we can define those things differently. One of the things that we want to do in this particular session is really raise the level of awareness and ask ourselves, what are those? What are those places in our lives that even through the very storms of life that we say, no, I'm holding on to this. And this is my compass. This is what gets me through. And in Sacred Vocation, one of the things that we want to do is we want to raise our awareness of those things in our own lives so that they become not just nice things, but they become functional for us. Things that we grab hold of, that feed us, that help us get back home, if you will, to who we are. To illustrate this point, I want to read to you a particular writing by William Stafford. It's a writing entitled The Way It Is. And we oftentimes refer to this as the thread poem or the thread piece. I want to read this to you and just offer to you some reflections on this. There is a thread you follow. It goes among things that change, but it doesn't change. People wonder about what things you are pursuing. You have to explain about the thread. But it's hard for others to see. While you hold it, you can't get lost. Tragedies happen. People get hurt or die, and you suffer and grow old. Nothing you can do can stop time's unfolding. Yet you never let go of the thread. To illustrate even this particular piece, this much more so, let me share with you an illustration. You know, we don't experience this a whole lot, maybe in our southern states, in Texas, and we don't experience this a whole lot, or really ever. But in northern climates, during around fall and autumn, especially in generations past, where work life and family life might be very much so tied together, maybe in the family farm. There would be a common experience in the autumn or fall months where individuals would take a rope or a thread, if you will, and they would take it and they would tie it off on their front porch and string that all the way out to the barn and tie it off there. And then they would take another thread and take that and tie that off maybe to another outbuilding and tie and connect buildings with these threads or these ropes. Why would they do this? Well, they would do this because of this very simple reason. Winter always comes. They would experience times where maybe there would be snowfall that would happen. And then in a moment's notice, they would be in this place that was very familiar to them, where they worked, where they lived their lives. And then all of a sudden, there were these blizzards, a whiteout, where they couldn't see in front of them. It would just be just feet in front of them, and they couldn't see. This was a place that they were very familiar. This is the place where they lived and worked. But then all of a sudden, they would become disoriented. Something would happen, and they couldn't find their way back. Sadly, there are stories of individuals that have found their loved ones who have let go of the thread and found themselves wandering, found themselves many times, sadly, having perished in a storm, just yards or feet from safety. With that in mind, I'll read this again. There is a thread you follow. It goes among things that change, but it doesn't change. People wonder about what things you are pursuing. You have to explain about the thread, but it's hard for others to see. While you hold it, you can't get lost. Tragedies happen. People get hurt or die. You suffer and grow old. Nothing you can do can stop time's unfolding, but you never let go of the thread. You're up on the unit and things are going well. You're ready to discharge a particular patient and you're thinking, okay, everything is fine and well, but then something happens and there's a bad outcome. There's a conflict on the unit. Something happens. Maybe you're sitting at your desk and you get an email about a series of meetings that need to happen and anxiety rises up within you. These are these whiteout moments, these blizzard moments where we're in these very familiar areas, but then all of a sudden we become deregulated. We get blindsided by something and we think, okay, how do I respond to this? How do I function? And many times we can find ourselves, instead of thoughtfully responding in accordance with the threads in our lives, we can find ourselves becoming reactionary. And many times those reactions, sometimes they're good, but then there can be other times where they can come out of places within our own hearts that maybe aren't healing, but instead we wind up harming instead of healing. One of the things that I want to just lift up for you in this particular session is take an hour this week and just sit down and write down, what are your threads? What are they? What are those things in your life that help you get back home when there are those difficulties vocationally, when it feels as though there's a loss of meaning? Where do those threads, here's a question, where do those threads speak into that particular storm, that particular place of feeling disillusioned, or that place of conflict? What are they? It can be that sense of, well, my faith might speak to these particular areas, or help me function, help navigate me, or the particular values I was raised with, or maybe particular mentors in your life that have given particular pieces of wisdom to you that you've held on to. What are those? And again, what we want to do within Sacred Vocation is to raise that level of self-awareness of these particular areas in our lives so that as we navigate these at times can be very scary places, these situations that come from out of nowhere, what are your threads? What are those places that you say, this is sacred to me and this is what I hold on to? Take that with you this week and really begin to do some work to ask yourselves the question, not just what are they, but how do they function? How do they feed you? How do they guide you in the midst of difficult circumstances to be able to restore yourself into this place of connection, of meaning and purpose in the midst of your vocation? Thank you so very much.